The UK is overpriced and overtaxed. The living standards in the UK have been falling ever since the financial crisis of 2008. And I think it's quite obvious after Brexit, COVID, and the Ukraine war. There was a time during the 1990s when the average US income was the same as the UK income. But fast forward to 2025, US incomes are roughly 40% higher than those of the UK. In the meantime, if you live in Asia right now, things are dirt cheap. And this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm living in Hong Kong right now. I moved away from the UK 28 years ago. I haven't spent all that time in Hong Kong. If you look on the internet, Hong Kong's GDP per capita is easily in the top 20. The US GDP is higher than in Hong Kong, but Hong Kong's GDP on average is higher than Europe, UK, Australia, and Canada. But those figures don't really give you a clear picture of what's going on in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong has the lowest tax rates in the world. Well, you could say there is no tax in Hong Kong. So let me give you an example. We have no capital gains tax here. So if you buy real estate or gold, you don't pay any capital gains tax. There is no inheritance tax here. We don't pay VAT, or in some countries it's known as GST. And what about income tax? Well, if you earn $500,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is roughly £50,000 or 62,500 US dollars, you don't pay any income tax if you have family allowance. Let's suppose you earn 1 million Hong Kong dollars in Hong Kong. That's the equivalent to 100,000 pounds or 125,000 US dollars. You would pay 10% in income tax if you have family allowance. Another point is that Chinese consumer products are very cheap in Hong Kong. You can buy Chinese products at near factory prices from Taobao. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with Taobao, but it's the Chinese equivalent of Amazon. But as far as I know, Taobao has a better service than Amazon. For example, if you receive faulty products from Taobao, then all you need to do is contact the seller. You may not have to send the product back to them. They'll tell you to throw it in the bin. They will either give you a replacement free of charge, or they will just give you a refund. The thing about China right now is that there is deflation. Factories are churning out lots of goods which they can't sell. They just can't get rid of the stock. So everything is cheap, right? Apart from real estate. Everything else is cheap. Now, I also spend a lot of time in Thailand and Vietnam, and I don't think I need to explain to the viewers how cheap those countries are. Although Thailand has become more expensive over the past 10 years, but Vietnam is definitely cheap. And I am a Hong Kong tax resident. That means I am supposed to pay Hong Kong taxes. well, yeah, I have to, every year I need to do tax returns in Hong Kong, right? And in which case I don't pay any taxes at all. And so long as I don't spend more than 180 days in either Thailand or Vietnam, then I don't pay any income tax at all in Thailand and Vietnam. And I can, at the same time, enjoy the cheap food and the cheap hotels, cheap transport in those two countries. If you're a young Brit and you've just graduated, the chances are it's very difficult to find a job. I've been through it before. I can remember back in 2008 when I was living in the UK. This was just after the great financial crisis, and I was applying for jobs online every single time. They'll just tell you, oh, we've received your application, we will contact you shortly, and you never hear from them. And it was just such a struggle. It's like, for every 50 job applications you send out, maybe you get one interview, and then you had to take a train for 2 hours, to get to the place, and then they interview you for about 7 minutes. Then they say, well, okay, we'll contact you later. In the end, they'll just tell you, oh, you didn't get the job. Yeah, life was definitely difficult in the UK, but I think it's gotten worse right now, because prices have just gone up, right? And there aren't that many jobs out there, to be honest. So, if you're a young Brit and you're finding life difficult in the UK, maybe you should think about moving to Asia. I think a lot of people imagine that Hong Kong is a very expensive place. Hong Kong's real estate is still the most expensive in the world, but something has actually changed in the past 5 or 6 years. Remember back in 2019, we had all those protests, and then we had COVID. Everybody was pessimistic. But ever since then, house prices in Hong Kong have fallen by 30%. In addition, as I said earlier on, China is experiencing deflation. It means that a lot of goods are cheaper than what they used to be. But that's not the case in America and Europe. Ever since COVID, prices have gotten out of control. So Hong Kong has become cheaper over the past 5 years when you compare it to Western countries. This is perhaps the main reason why so many expats live in China. They live in China, they enjoy cheap food, cheap accommodation, and they can buy cheap Chinese products. They themselves know that it's difficult to make a living in Western countries. So some of them go online to rave about China. They will tell you how great China is. But there is one point to remember. There are taxes in mainland China, but Hong Kong has no taxes. And if you're living in Hong Kong, Thailand and Vietnam are only 3 hours away by plane. We can, and the flight tickets are usually $70 one way. We can easily go to those countries and enjoy cheap accommodation, cheap food, cheap transport, and enjoy the sun. But one thing to remember is this: Thailand and Vietnam do tax overseas income. If you stay in either Thailand or Vietnam for more than 180 days in a tax year, you are supposed to pay income tax on all foreign income. And that may include stocks, gold, maybe rentals. If you have a house, you're receiving rental income, you're supposed to pay tax on all that. But there is one way to avoid all that. That is, make sure that you don't stay in Thailand and Vietnam for more than 180 days. Obviously, if you don't own any of these investments, then it's okay to stay in Thailand or Vietnam for 365 days. So if you are a young Brit and you're finding life difficult in the UK, then you need to consider coming to Asia. So if you have any questions regarding Asia, you can leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching.